out of this pretzel. Oh, so let's begin with a working theme for the evening's
Fix some electrical socket.
the evening's festivities. Just never going to be successful at this.
My utopia won't work.
My goddamn utopic ideas just won't kick in. There goes that.
I have so many ideas about how great I can be. Just stick.
Did you cancel meditation on Tuesday for the storm?
No,
Oh, good.
I had a solo meditation.
Oh, you were there alone?
I was there alone,
Mm-hmm.
me and my cushion.
Yeah, well, that's nice too.
It was actually. Half an hour. So what is the stimulus for tonight?
Yeah.
Tea.
Well, you start with you start with an impression field. The impression field, left alone or by itself, without commentary or narrative or, willful intervention, is, both the fulfillment of nirvana and, an access vehicle. Now along comes the habit to apply story, language, symbols, and orientation as a superimposition on the nirvanic impression field. And that reflex, habit, involuntarily arising. Is what suggests the fiction of agency and the fiction of insufficiency, of restlessness. So what we might experience as being disappointing or unsatisfactory is based solely on the narrative and the context that one brings to the impression field. And all the negotiation that happens in the healing game, whether it's the Buddhist healing game or the Course in Miracles healing game or any healing game, is a recapitulation of the narrative, of the story told.
Not about changing the story, like to some utopic, better version or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, the healing game is, in a sense, devoted to changing the story or attempting to apply alternate meaning to, the so-called events of one's life.
In order to soothe whatever it is.
Yes, the healing game is, right, largely about some form of soothing. Yeah. Which, of course, includes the promising an open heart and attracting better partners. And
like reading a little kid bedtime stories. If you're reading them you're reading like scary stories and they're getting a little funny and you're like, okay, let's go with butterflies, and then they feel better, and then they go to bed.
yes, yes, all of that. So even whatever degree of succor we may derive from participating in the healing game and making some even progress in the healing game won't work. It's not enough. To be glib about it. It's not the truth. So it won't satisfy. So the seeking, can persist over, the greater part of a lifetime, as long as we are trying to negotiate with or navigate within the myth field of the narrative at the expense of recalibrating our attention to the impression field, the nirvanic impression field. As long as you're in the healing game, and I'm not putting it down, because life hurts and can hurt, a lot. So there's certainly something to be said for participating skillfully in the healing game, in the in the reorientation of an old, painful, limiting story to, you know, some kind of more better, elastic, opportune story. So that's cool. But it won't work because it's not true. You're still a product of orientation. You're still a product of imposed coordinates. To put it simply, you know, we're living in our head.
It's abstract, right? Right.
The entire history of my life is abstraction. Whatever I could say about my present experience is abstraction. The nirvanic field, which is exactly this, is not an abstraction. But any meaning or composition assigned to it or imposed upon it, that makes it an abstraction.
Any evaluation is in the realm of abstraction.
Any and all evaluation
Mhm.
is in the realm of abstraction. Yes.
Even though the primate, you might say, has a pleasure-pain experience in the field and would move towards pleasure and away from pain, abstraction is the one thinking about the condition, scheming about perhaps how to move more towards the desirable and away from
Sure.
the undesirable.
Scheming is time. Time is self. Self is impossible.
I mean, impossible to pin down.
Impossible to suffer. meaning,
Succotash.
yeah, meaning that, you know, dwelling as myself, a product of abstraction and narrative, I'm, you know, unhappy.
Excuse my funny postures, I have a sore neck.
Quite all right. So the, you know, the impulse to be self-consumed and self-celebrating or self-critical or anything having to do with the abstraction of myself is a dead end of perpetual disappointment. Perpetual, you know, unsatisfactoriness, insufficiency, because it's abstract. It's not it's not whatever real might imply. And whatever real implies is pretty unreal also, so.
Yeah, because implying anything is already removed from
Yeah,
the field by one factor.
that's right. I mean, this, you know, the power and the formidability with which so-called present experience goes to abstraction is profound and, you know, unrelenting. Fruition, therefore, you know, in the path of yoga, progress in the path of yoga, can be felt in one sense as a, you know, lessening of the reflex of self-absorption, a weaning oneself from the unrelenting pressure of abstraction, which is scheming and space and time and disappointment and projection and, you know, everything that we're so good at engaging in the, you know, the mental or emotional atmosphere. Well, that doesn't necessarily have to mean, you know, you forget to eat, but it could. You just wouldn't make an issue out of it.
That's right. It's kind of like a reverse indulgence. You know,
Yeah,
like an ascetic that's showing everybody how they can deny themselves of something.
yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, we're all
These
going
guys
to
are
benefit
really
from
skinny.
that.
I don't know if I believe him. What is he eating for his one meal? Like fat? I mean, he's not a big guy, but he's not like
He's not skinny,
You
no,
know?
not skinny. He's been reminded a lot.
spoonfuls of bacon grease.
Right. Yeah. So the you know, the fun of this and the frustrating part of it is that we're not you know, negotiating with or creating a new angle to the healing game. Yeah, there's no need to tell, you know, a story to yourself about yourself, because it's clear that it's just pure abstraction. And then to invest, you know, pridefully invest in the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves or to anyone else. Well, I mean, it becomes, you know, farcical.
Yes, in both directions. Like,
Absolutely.
how did you become so successful? Or how did you become such a mess? And having an answer to either one of those.
Yeah. 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 Having your elevator people on demand, you know, to share with someone or a group or whomever, so you can, right, clarify and characterize who you think you are and how you think you roll, which is farcical.
It's a front, for sure. At the very least.
So what is it that's meant by, you know, the word actuality or reality? I mean, and of course they're very easy to, right, misdirect. What is the nature of present experience if you take a moment's break, a moment's respite from naming objects? I mean, that's what actual is. Actual is whatever present experience is demonstrating as is felt by you, not abstracted. So in a sense, you could say capacity for attention is moving toward what's presently felt without the narrative, the explanation, the implication. You can say stuff like energy, vibration, maybe you can refer to what's appearing in the visual field as texture, color, light. The same thing in the auditory field or the olfactory or the field of touch. But even the subtlest of words that you may use to characterize what's appearing or occurring through the sense windows is another, right, form of narrative.
It instantly creates separation. Like it's just seeing that so much clearly. Like anytime you're like, I see, you're assuming that most of the time, the way we use that language is there's light, bouncing off my eyes, and then I see something, but that's not really.
No, I see. Yeah,
like,
I mean,
oh, no,
if I
there's
even
not.
tried to use the most succinct, poetic or scientific or whatever, language to attempt to convey what is the nature of and what is it that's appearing as present experience, I can't do it. No one can. That's odd, because we are so reflexively full of ourselves from moment to moment, as we navigate the day or navigate relationships or navigate our own imagination through the movement of abstraction. We're able to create scenarios and stories and schemes without any effort at all, even though all of it is conjured, concocted. And then naturally or unnaturally, we become absolutely prideful and familiar with the curious manner in which we concoct reality out of nothing according to the timbre of our persona. Because you're you and I'm me, and you're you and you're you, and you're recognizable to yourself, and you're recognizable to people that know you, that have a delight or less than delight when you show up. I mean, we're all very curiously characteristic, not just our physical appearance, but our, the tone of voice, our gait, the way we enter a room, how we hang out, whether we're funny or not. And the only one thing we have in common is that nobody likes us. And so we've become very proud and enamored of ourselves, which is arbitrarily concocted out of nothing at all, based on, I don't know, nature and nurture, the harmonics, however, whatever DNA is, constructs the likes of you and the reality that you seem to perceive, from day to day. Pre and post ayahuasca, pre and post LSD, pre and post, cathartic yogic experience. So we're just for fun, obviously not for profit, just for fun, dismantling, without making a big deal about it, the arbitrary nature of the sense of persona and sense of agency that you or I or anyone possesses. It's conditioned abstraction.
Well, if the mind is an abstract factory, an abstract generator, would it be of interest to occupy it with something? I mean, since it wants to constantly do what it does, it seems like. Is there a curious interest that can arise to occupy it without objective, without really I guess there is some objective. It's like seeing that it goes down tracks over and over again. And the tracks run into dead ends more and more often. I'm less and less satisfied.
Well, let's hope that a constructive response to less and less satisfying, becomes a more, may I say, mature or serious consideration of,
Trying harder and harder.
trying harder and harder, or the yoga of dissolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a long time we tried
Yeah.
harder and harder at being ourselves better and better. And if we are successful, whether financially or sexually or with respect to a parking spot or whatever, we think that's great news.
You write a book.
And why not write a book or, be invited to teach at Omega or something like that. Have a surefire plan and approach for nothing at all, and then sell that internationally for fun and profit.
So it's almost more beneficial in one sense that things don't work. And then we're compelled into perhaps an open availability because we're like, tried there, didn't work, been there, done that, went to the end of the road and beyond, nothing going.
When the guru says, pray for trouble, he's not kidding around.
There's like a billion times more than that, like miserable ass people though. I mean,
There's a bunch of miserable ass people.
and they're not getting enlightened left or right, so
No, they're not. Yeah. So that doesn't work either.
Nothing's beneficial.
Nothing's gonna work.
But ironically, it could be that misery is a step closer to possibly an openness than one who
It could be.
has consistently succeeded and has a prescribed formula.
Well, the alchemy of present experience is very omnivorous. It will borrow from good experience and not good experience.
Anything.
It'll borrow from anything at all to, you could say, to reconsider what the fuck is going on. Yeah, you don't just have to, use failure for leverage.
it tastes like chemicals, do you?
Really?
Try
Do
some.
you think that's a good
It's a bag
That's
of
great.
seasoned potato
Is this
chips.
payback
What
for
else is
that
it gonna
small
taste like?
candy I
Does this
offered
taste
you
like
the other day?
chemicals to you?
All right. I'm stupid enough. I'll try it.
Smells like chemical.
What flavor is
Tastes
it?
like chemical.
Does this taste like poison to you?
You didn't step in it.
I'm just freaking myself out.
I don't know. I burnt my tongue drinking tea and I'm shy. I'm not sure you can even taste it.
Tastes like
see.
chemicals to you?
I mean, it tastes like the
Oh, well, it's flavor blasted with cheddar.
Just regular tastes like cheddar cheese, except like it
They
was.
always kind of taste like chemicals.
No, like even more. Like tastes like I don't even know. Like something like this one maybe.
It might be sometimes when you eat something first,
That's what I
it tastes
thought.
funny.
Yeah, but I was like, why would like a regular like
Wow.
roasted turkey
It tastes a little like psilocybin, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, toast you
Well,
on
if
it.
you don't want them,
Somebody laced your
I would
goldfish with
appreciate that. I'll
psilocybin.
have the rest of the bag.
Yeah. Yeah, let's eat the rest of that bag.
What do you think, Dave? It's like regular junk food, or like it was like strong when I tasted it. If you're not like weirded out, then it's just me.
Just you. Maybe
No,
you
but
got
if
like an
burn
odd
my
one or
tongue,
something.
Chai is kind of
It still tastes like that to me.
Mm.
overpowering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the strongest texture I get is like a pasty floury.
It's like when I bite them, it's like
Base.
there's like chemical gas trapped in them.
Oh,
It's
You might want to put that bag down.
I think I've been having that experience a lot lately. It like opens up. It feels like it opens up stuff on your tongue. And
then they ought to call them bloated
I don't
fish.
know.
Whatever it airs in them, I think is what it does.
Factory air.
Well, enjoy your chemical goldfish.
Yeah.
Might as well.
Might as well. So, it's no easy task to learn how to shift your attention or whatever awareness is from abstraction to a relaxed consideration of what is the nature of present experience. Most humans, if that's what you want to call them, are trapped in the myth of narrative.
Dave will eat them.
Yeah, the whole thing, dude. I'm sorry, Jeff. You might continue
Quite all right.
now.
If goldfish
It's
can't
the
interrupt
goldfish's fault, yeah.
a discourse,
Yes,
nothing can.
I want my vitals checked at the end of the meeting.
That's right.
This is enlightenment, man. It's gonna make you real sick, and it's gonna be the best thing for you, Dave. Trust me.
That's right.
I'll work this all out. We're gonna be miserable, and that'll be it.
Your ship's gonna come in.
What's the meaning of life? Go fish.
So one aspect of fruitful inquiry, and I don't typically love the word inquiry
Or fruitful.
or fruitful for that matter, is it's an educational orientation process, so that we learn how to, let's say, be sufficiently present without the nagging distraction of the imagination of our lives. I mean, really, it's quite interesting to just, put the imagination of your life in a little itty bitty shoebox and, just leave it. And that's not easy to do. I mean, most people wouldn't even know how to make any sense of that, because we're so riddled with self-preoccupation and knowledge and stories and all the ways that we've suffered and all the ways that we are committed to suffering less.
We generally tend to imagine that we just have one life to live and it's short. There's not a lot of time and you have to make the most of it, so that's a lot of pressure to keep
Yes.
on it,
There's a lot of pressure for, sense or sensual satisfaction or security seeking and all the
constant
stuff that
just
keeps us occupied.
temptation about it either way.
And even, just the temptation is plenty.
So what happened with your accountant friend, Dave?
What?
What happened with your accountant friend?
Accountant. Oh, Anne Marie.
Last week or whatever.
Yeah, she's still online. I mean,
She went to that place that I knew. She's gonna
what place?
whatever place you didn't want to go to that much, but she's gonna take a job there.
Oh, Himalayan Institute. She went for an interview. It went well, but they didn't have what she was looking for. They had a different job available, which is not appealing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not resonating right now.
Yeah.
But, they say nature abhors a vacuum.
They
So-
say that.
So when this activity that distracts and abstracts almost knee-jerkingly is replaced by non-activity, perhaps, or non-disturbance, what flows into its place?
Well, yeah, exactly. Here it is. This is what flows into its place. So the mind that is accustomed to narrative and the stress of narrative is already engrossed, habitually engrossed in looking for objects to play with, like a cat, bats, things. But how might this feel, just as it is, without feeding the greed response, the acquisitive, admiring, and scheming response for more story? Is it possible that present experience can be nourishing, immersive, and obliterating, which could be felt as the cessation of superficial acquisition, the cessation of abstraction? Well, it's hardly a vacuum.
I imagine it's more like live streaming without a recording device,
Isn't that what you are,
in a sense.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, aren't you live streaming, right? Without a recording device?
Well, the recording device kind of grabs a hold of peak moments and wants to kind of dwell with them, or
Not even peak.
Or
I mean,
it might-
all throughout the ordinary day, abstraction is running.
yeah, it might dwell on a crash and burn, like holy shit.
But it dwells on self-interest,
Right.
ordinary self-interest incessantly. It
Right.
doesn't need peak experience to do so.
Right. My well-being or my experience,
Yeah, I mean, you and everyone else is
Yeah.
riddled with, envy, comparison, conjecture, projection, entertainment all day long. No, whether you're constructively occupied or not, whether you're making a living or, playing free cell. Right? You are streaming, ecstatically streaming, if I can dare suggest. Already. So what we call the mind is like, well, what would I do? Who would I be? How would I function if I didn't manufacture and then attend to the hell realm of abstraction? Find out. I mean, just, wanting to know ahead of time by virtue of someone telling you what will happen to you is never going to satisfy anyway. Find out. Here it is. This is you, or whatever experience is, streaming in incomprehensible novelty and subtlety, immersive, obliterative profundity that wipes the habit of abstraction clean. This is the nirvanic field.
So the I reference that we keep coming back to is not really required. Not really necessarily a central fixture. You might
The I reference is a,
get that funny taste.
thanks. The I reference is a myth.
But a myth we feel compelled to perpetuate.
It appears that way, that we become fond of, compelled to perpetuate the myth of abstraction as my experience. So to see that the manner in which you, I, me, anyone portrays agency and I, to see it clearly, undefendedly, is like, holy fuck, I am a ghost. all the narrative that I may bring to the table, either spoken to myself, imagined, or shared with another, is pure abstraction. It's a concoction. What's real, difficult word to nail down. What's actual, a difficult word to nail down, is exactly this streaming novelty, without having to be accompanied by abstraction. I mean, you can sit under a Bodhi tree, you know, and fight with Mara, fight the good fight with Mara all night. You can do it, but, you know, it's been done. Let's move on. Our, call it suffering, is the displeasure that accompanies the misunderstanding of the nirvanic field.
Like a sort of discomfort because it just naturally it feels out of place. You know, in a weird.
I think anyone easily suffers from restlessness and insecurity as a product of narration, as a product of abstraction. Yeah. You know, mild anxiety at a minimum, paralytic, right? Social phobia, when it gets more serious. So the social structures, right, of the civilization and its the way that it, you know, so-called groups of humans have organized themselves into affinity groups, right? Whether the affinity group is gender, race, color, socioeconomic class, political party, with or without weapons, with or without food.
Just use that anxiety. Because if you're neurotically referencing yourself, it's a lot better if you're with like people than if you're in a kind of space where you're not sure, or you're not, you know what I mean? You kind of have,
Yeah.
it's like the,
That's why I feel so comfortable at Pebble Hill.
it's like why people are like family, no, you know, that's kind of like an outgassing of that basic kind of,
Yes.
that's going to be the preferred way to hang out is like kin, you know, like groups.
As the product of neurotic misunderstanding, sociopathic misunderstanding, then yeah, we function according to, you know, kin, groups, hierarchical structures, right? Power through knowledge, power through size, right? Power through weapons.
I only want to be associated with you if you have something for me, however that might look. You know?
Power through, you know, belief. I'm more devoted to the master than you are, and everybody knows that. So stand down.
And give me your money.
And then give me your money. Yeah. So, you know, when we unwind the myth of the superstructure of mind, of consciousness, of narration and abstraction, and the way that that curious mechanism, you know, infiltrates the civilization, infiltrates and shapes the social groups, then, I mean, it's farcical and tragically farcical. And in most cases, the efforts made to remedy our disquietude, spiritually or otherwise, are likewise farcical because they suffer from misdiagnosis. I'm not putting it down or criticizing it, even if I refer to it as farcical. You know, this is an alchemy of an intimate alchemy of the nature of present experience, which steers of its own nature toward obliterative, immersive, non-conceptual understanding. Aren't you without self-reference? Isn't this without self-reference? Without the pride of I? Do we have the gall, unmitigated cojones, to rest and revel in the nirvanic field without having to prove anything, scheme or strategize, contribute to utopic enterprise? Is this enough? Now, if my mind gets in the way, if my narrative gets in the way, if the, grotesqueries of my personal abstraction get in the way, I can find profound malnourishment. Guilt and shame start there, and guilt and shame and more of that. Or pride and justification, anger, resentment, rage. Sure, have it all. But if I can somehow discover and take refuge in, Buddhist terminology, take refuge in this streaming novelty. Discover what it feels like to be nourished, fascinated, illuminated in the company of present experience, as present experience, free from narration, abstraction, anything to prove to myself or anybody else. to find something, either a quarrel with reality, an unsatisfactoriness, Genesis and the reasons for anything at all, requires abstraction, comparison, value propositions, discernment, discrimination, objectification of present experience. And living, as the product of our own imagination. Is maddening. Being enrolled in the pride of getting what we want. The law of attraction, The Secret, Hicks, or whomever's out there that, Dispenza, those guys.
Joe Dispenza.
Those manifesting assholes.
I always think of that guy. He's like sitting in front of this beautiful fireplace with his little
Yeah,
teacup
sure.
or something. It's like, oh.
That's right. I mean,
You're like, yeah. I
present
wanna do that.
experience is so deliciously obliterative. You can't even spell manifest. You're dumbfounded at the M. Like, M. You see?
Because you're already starting to count your eggs.
If you got something going on that smacks of, physicality and, so-called abundance, you're in trouble. You fucking missed the boat. If the nirvanic field doesn't level you exactly where you are, you've missed it. You have become an asshole. That doesn't mean you're not fun to hang out with or smoke pot with, but you're a moron. Because you have mistaken the nirvanic field to be something that has to do with the likes of you. That's a formidable error. But Bruce Lipton, he's so full of himself. I mean, we all are. Why single him out? Marianne Williamson, she's pretty full of herself. Why shouldn't she be? She's a Texas Jew. She has every right to be. She's an evangelical.
You can say that because you're a New York Jew, right?
Evangelical Texas Jew selling Course in Miracles to the minions. So she has every right to be full of herself. She's earned it. You see, anytime we make commentary, which I like to do, of course, on the social milieu, the geopolitical milieu, right? The farcical madness of civilization and its date with extinction. As much fun as that is, it's like, it's just an indulgence. Humans are fucked. Silly. Every one of us, to the last standing, man and woman and child, are appearing at the behest of the nirvanic field. There is no agency. There is no choice. The whole thing is just running as an AI program.
So you're saying that God voted for Trump?
Must have been.
I think I've asked you this before, but have you ever read that book Ishmael by Daniel
Mhm.
Quinn?
Yeah.
What about him?
No.
Seems like a book he would like, right? He's always going on about we're killing everybody, we're killing everything, civilization.
I don't want to read that shit. I just plug it out of the air.
Maybe in
It's
20,
fun.
20 years ago he would have liked it. I think.
Yeah, maybe.
It's stuck in my mind for some reason.
Sure. Well, if you have the slightest bit of empathy, which is hard to come by, it can be very disappointing, how the population explosion and the catharsis of the autocratic nation state, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is, compromising the beauty of the biosphere, right? The sustainability of destroying the capacity for joyful living.
Well, I have a book that's the counterpoint to that
Yes,
by Steven Pinker. It's called Enlightenment Now,
nice.
but it refers to whatever scientific revolution, enlightenment thought.
Yes,
And it just details every way in which
we're ahead of
life
the
has
curve.
become awesome in the past, 300 years. And how,
Yeah.
people have power and are being pulled into poverty and
Yeah. Yes.
you don't have these child marriages and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. No question about it.
but maybe we will all die in 20 years.
Yeah.
But it'll be really nice at the end.
But just before we go extinct, it's going to be really utopic. So hang in there. Don't take your life prematurely. Don't be a bozo.
I'm thinking of the Conjurer, is stuck on conjuring, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mickey Mouse, with the wand.
Yeah.
And holy shit, I'm in trouble now. It's just multiplied exponentially,
Oh, yeah.
and this compulsion to produce and create, or to externalize some solution
Yes.
to something that is perceived.
The externalization, whether it has to do with, the disappointment one might harbor toward the civilization, or even a more subtle externalization, which is, me and my imagination against the world. The samsaric impulse is there. The delusional impulse is there. I mean, you are nothing at all ever. And so doing something about yourself is way too much. But as long as one is, suffering in the ways that's recognizable, then yeah, what the fuck, work out your shit. If you can, if you have the resources and the IQ and the intelligence, and you find persons, places, events, and hallucinogens that can help. But don't get too excited about the medium, if you can help it. I mean, don't become a card-carrying Buddhist, because Buddhism is bullshit. Simply rest in the nirvanic field. You can kiss Buddhism goodbye. Now, of course, everyone could use whatever on-ramp that they may stumble into. So use the on-ramp, in a discerning, sincere, humorous manner. Why not? According to your nature. But don't become a product of the medium. Don't become, if you can help it, prideful about your yoga practice, or your diet, or your vipassana, or your command of the Course in Miracles, or the Big Book, or the Bible, or the Ramayana. don't get too prideful, if you can help it, of course, in your command over the means, practices, mediums, and purifications that you may have participated in during your life, because this is the nirvanic field. While you've been sitting in a cave, on a 3-year retreat, trying to cultivate, ecstatic or insightful God experience, this is the nirvanic field. Maybe you've been working at it too hard.
My mind is going to, and often does, frequently, how to turn the volume down
Mm-hmm.
from the noise of that
Yeah,
compelling activity
that's right. You're right.
that takes us away from the
Yeah,
ever-present
yeah,
awake,
right.
the ever-present. It's already here.
Mhm.
It's already now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And just quieting it enough to be able to let some of that in.
yeah,
And then maybe to let it in enough to where the self really starts to untether, I guess.
yeah. That's right.
Less demanding
Yes,
of the next creation or the next
yes, that's right.
the next endeavor.
Uh-huh.
Or
Yeah.
the next avoidance.
Present experience is the on-ramp. So one, just like you tune, a radio crystal, right, into a certain frequency, whether it's an AM or FM or other kind of frequency. You do the same thing with the, call it the antenna or the receptivity of present awareness. So how do I tune present awareness to a more refined station? Now, one way to calibrate that is the contemplation of what is it that's, quote, happening, if it's happening right about now. Because abstraction is time. Mental abstraction and narration is time. It's it's a deferral mechanism. It's an avoidance mechanism.
Like a deadline.
The advice given along these lines is feel how this feels to feel this. Really, feel how it feels to feel this.
This is felt.
This is felt. And that capacity, to attenuate or tune in the radio crystal to how does this feel to feel this as it's being felt, is a shift from abstraction and narration to the very curious nature of present experience, about which you can't really nail or pin anything down at all. So in that, you could say it's a practice, and it can be a practice. Why not? How does it feel to feel this? Just about right now. And it's a textural question, not an emotional question. We're not saying, how do you feel about it? Because usually that answer is restless and avoidant. Yeah, well, I am, besides my social phobias and incapacity for intimacy, I am restless and avoidant, and I can count on that 24/7, waking, dreaming, or deep sleep. So we're not asking, how do you feel about anything? Because you don't really know how you feel about anything anyway. And even if you felt that way, you'd be lying. It's a different kind of question. This is felt. The primacy of being, before you jump into narrative, is, what the fuck is this? So the receptors of your magical capacity for feeling tone, feeling tonality, you just inhabit those receptors. And instantly or slowly, through what could be called repetition, you discover what it feels like to feel what this feels like. And that begins to fill you, or fill your capacity for attention. It is attention. So there's a natural weaning from the habit to narrate. Beauty is awfully beautiful, no question about it. But what if you could discover beauty without any reference to objects?
It's so much sweeter because it's not dependent then on the environment or your behavior, any kind of environmental conditions. So it's like, oh, that's kind of nice.
That's kind of nice. Beauty is completely autonomous. Yeah, it's not dependent on objects, subjectivity, or anything that might appear in the sense windows. It's the collapse of, any kind of dependency. Yeah, if you want to skip a few meals, okay.
I know.
I'm guessing that was a hot topic on Tuesday.
Not really, no. We're just teasing.
It's a poke.
It was a little poke, yeah.
How did that go? A lot of people with that.
No, not too many, but enough to make it, interesting to a point. And I sure as fuck don't need to do it again.
Like,
How about
or,
live?
There we go.
Well,
It sucks the weather happened. I would have went in person, but
Yeah, I was wondering if live would. different-
I know that he'd be happy to meet, and if the weather's nice, we can set it up and go. I
It's
mean,
even
yeah,
worse because he's so soft spoken. I still, even on my computer, I was like, should I put on headphones? So if you're in like a Cheesecake Factory or something,
I think I have to get in his clothes. To
I
do that.
know. Do I have to inhabit you to hear what you're saying?
you must large.
I know.
Yeah,
I probably just like asked him to like speak up a little bit. What
No, we
happened?
tried. It's just he's not very, even his word, it's very like mumbly, like monotone. There's not a lot of, so it just kind of,
yeah,
Uh,
enlightened monotony.
seems to be a thing with those enlightened
It's a
people.
thing, man.
Monotone.
Unless, of course, you're traveling lighter.
Oh, yeah.
Then it's very
Except
exciting.
for that guy. He's got lots of range.
It does. It's got broader range. Understandably, whatever mind is, loves mind. That, right? Restlessness and abstraction and engagement and narration and the meaning of things and the value associations given and the belief and the superstition and the certainty. It loves itself. And one can find it very challenging to replace mind with presence or texture. So in that respect, maybe it's good to have a salon, to go to so that you can groove. Groove on the nature of present experience and explore that. Get accustomed to nirvana, baby step at a time. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a fitful, heroic, cathartic, overly demonstrative thing. It can be chill. You begin to understand what the implication of the nirvanic field is, that it is exactly at hand, that there's nothing but the nirvanic field. And you slowly lose interest in the momentum of narration and abstraction and find nourishment sipping from the nirvanic field. We can be so results driven and, utopic impulses is results, right? Results driven. That once this happens and that happens and this happens and that happens and I change from within and all of these, right? Prerequisites for some kind of future satisfaction. What if that whole, thing were to drop away? You were no longer the product of present experience, past experience, or the anticipation of future experience. You go out to the barn, you unlock the door, and you tell all the unicorns, you're free.
Must have really been something in those goldfish.
I tell you, man, the goldfish tonight were awesome.
But, yeah, Beth said she watched. I think it's called Wild Wild Country.
We just-
Is that with OSHA, right?
Yeah.
I watched it, didn't know who it was, and then she sent that thing out. I'm like, I think this is the same wacko that I just watched on the
Yeah.
thing. I didn't finish it.
Is that a documentary?
Yeah, or it's like a regular TV, like
It's,
dramatization.
yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
I don't watch. Is it good?
Called
It's
Wild.
it has a certain
Well,
fascinating quality to it. Unfortunately, you know, too much of it was about, you know, Sheila,
I don't know.
who was Bhagwan's secretary, and in his silence and disinterest in appearing publicly, she became the, you know,
Narrator.
the voice and the narrator and the power behind the unfolding of their ashram and community experience. So
No, I missed. I always like because it wasn't that. It was hard to sit still to watch that damn thing. But
yeah,
I missed they built like a giant city in his honor of sorts, right? But he had disappeared. Did he come back when they built that, or they built that? That was
He
under
was
his
there.
instruction.
he was there
That was his instruction.
for most of the time. He was there.
Was it initiated by him? Or
Yes.
Did they start? Okay,
Yeah,
that was weird.
yeah. I mean, because he was so outspoken in a, you know, really endearing way. If like us, you're a you know, you enjoy aversive personality disorder, he appealed to the aversives because he was so radical, you know, within, right, the orthodoxy of India. So they thought they needed to find another place to live because he was attracting too much contention. I mean, someone threw
everyone's
you know,
walking around wearing the same colored robes.
well, it was kind of stupid
Bad
too to do the
sign.
whole,
Come on.
do that whole fucking thing with the
Yeah.
red and the red robes and stuff. Yeah,
Wear some regular clothes.
it just didn't seem, you know, all that necessary. But anyway, so yeah, there was a woman that was going to look for property in India, and there was a woman that was, Sheila was empowered to go look for property in America. So she found this farm in Oregon and thought, oh, we could, you know, oh yeah, we could just build a community of 50,000 people here. But
50,000 people.
oh, it was
They
a town.
built like
Dude.
malls and
It's a town.
shit. And
you need to watch it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's really
I watched it.
They
fascinating.
built some like a
I'm watching
whole
it.
But
town.
the land, the 600 something thousand acres, was
Jesus.
zoned for ranching with a minimal of ranch related buildings. And they built a city.
Like what they did was impressive in terms of like the amount of like shit we can get done in a day. Like they like didn't take breaks. They were like dedicated psychopaths.
They were all
Just building.
constructive
But they
psychopaths.
built like cool, like you know, I don't know, it looks like good stuff. You know,
They built great stuff.
We we could barely put our heads together. We're like,
I
what
can't
are we
even
doing
finish a
this?
bag of
I
goldfish.
know.
Yeah, I have to watch it. I have to watch The Crown.
It's hard. It's hard to see. I'd be real tired or something. I don't know. It's
So
hard to
the
see.
emphasis was
Maybe while you're working.
way too much, because that's the footage and that was the drama field that they had,
Just her.
on the post-India experience, which was the purchase of the land and the development of Antelope, Oregon, into a city of 50,000 sannyasins with huge amounts of money and productivity, and all of the political haranguing that they got involved in to live their lifestyle.
That's gotta be the biggest cult ever, right? 50,000? Like active, like really in a community? Like,
Well, it was formidable.
yeah.
Yeah. And so all of the, you know, politics and violence and nefarious deeds that came out of the vicious tendencies of Sheila were portrayed, with some, I would say, some care. But then so the emphasis really was on the drama field of the Osho community, and perhaps a little too much emphasis on them being considered, sexually promiscuous, which they were. But I don't think that was half of it. You didn't really get a chance to get into the lovely, cathartic, humorous nature of his body of teaching.
Well, that's what, like, I didn't make it to the end. I was like, so was he like another just pervy, crazy person, or was there something there? Or I didn't get any.
He was very intelligent and very, very funny and very hypnotic. And so there's a lot of, call it excellent material woven into his body of work, which you don't get hardly any access to through this 6.5 hour thing.
Yeah.
The Mustard Seed's a pretty good book too. Got some juicy elements in there.
Yeah, he was provocative and juicy, and he was ahead of his time, really, in many respects. But he wasn't mature enough to understand how to negotiate and navigate.
50,000 people up your ass, Jesus.
No easy task. And the fact that, he amassed 20 some odd Rolls Royces and other crazy indulgences, and
As soon as there's a personality in the center of the movement,
right.
there's an inherent contradiction.
Yeah.
And you have people that want to be that center
Well,
in their own world.
Well, see, there's the very impulse that we're talking about at a very personal level.
Yeah.
Of, personal suffering, irritability, restlessness, and abstraction, validation, right, and getting things done, just exploded right throughout this community. Exponentially so, where if I can be so bold, the real yoga is, dude, chill the fuck out in the nirvanic field, rather than amplify, this restlessness and delusional tendency, across a utopic, right, landscape.
And all it does is whip everybody else, because they were drawing attention everywhere they went. It was immediately, everyone was like, what the fuck's going on there? It was like.
Well, I don't think Sheila really had good instruction as concerns the nuanced nature of self-realization. And I don't think, Bhagwan in his day was very mature in handing out constructive instruction in the nuanced nature of self-realization. He was messianic. He had his foibles, and it was his power, he was just born with. His astrological chart was like, this guy's trouble, man. He's an amplifier. So he was born to be an amplifier, and rather than amplifying the simplicity of, nirvanic wading, as one might wade in a pool, his amplification was, right?
Drama.
It was drama. It was a drama field, an ecstatic, drama field.
One of his devotees who didn't get caught up in the messianic aspect.
Yeah.
Regarding the sexual aspect of it is.
Yeah.
And the reason behind it was, do it till you're tired of it, and then let's talk and let's get down to it.
Yeah, that's right. That's why they don't teach Kabbalah until you're in your 50s. Traditionally, right?
I started early, so.
Yeah, you started early.
Because the other end of the spectrum is the brahmacharya. It's like, hey, chill out on that, and find it by channeling all that energy up. It's like, good luck.
Well, again, you see what happens. What happens is we become overly engaged in the process, right?
Right.
In the tools, in the abstraction of, spiritual purification. You're like, okay, everyone's lit, everyone's fucked up. Just relax on that. If you need to have sex and are lucky enough to have it, hopefully with, a consenting partner, then please
Yeah.
enjoy yourself. I mean, really, enjoy yourself, enjoy yourself, enjoy yourself. You can't say it enough, enjoy yourself. And if, you come back around to wanting to sip from the nirvanic field, okay, well then let's, we'll chill out and do that. It's the
Or
salon
both.
approach.
Like you don't have to
Or
have
both.
one or the other.
That's
That
right.
is
They're
like,
not.
oh shit. I
They're
can
not mutually
still
exclusive.
enjoy, to some extent, whatever bizarre persona appears to be.
If you want to
Showing
eat
up.
meat, smoke some ganja ceremonially or otherwise, and sip from their nirvanic field, fantastic.
Yeah.
Don't emphasize a thing as contrasted with not a thing.
Yeah.
Because that then this energy of abstraction becomes consumed with more distraction.
I saw how frustrating one guru got when the householders would come and say, "Occupied, I waited for the full moon to have sex with my wife, but just couldn't wait. Will you please, take care of that yourself?" You get tired after a while of them confessing publicly to
Well, yeah, that's just it.
their impulses, and it's like, you guys grow up.
Grow up, right?
But he was trapped in this dynamic of the children's mentality and the father that guides. And
Well, look, guess who did that?
it's kind of written in the Vedas in a way.
All right, so if he signed up,
Yeah, if he
to
signed
be a
up for that
Vedic
role.
guru, you're in trouble.
Yeah, Amrita Desai fell into that too.
Amrit Desai, yeah,
He
of
couldn't-
course.
He couldn't extricate himself from it. He tried.
No,
Oops, stuck. Oops, I'm caught.
yeah. Well, you see, right? The mind loves the mind. Sensuality loves sensuality. The restlessness of becoming and justification loves the restlessness of becoming and justification, and it loops in on itself. And loses sight of this simplicity of the present nirvanic field.
That's the irony of it. You have this mind that can be incredibly, what do you call it, complex.
Yes,
And then you have behind it all, this field that's incredibly available and simple.
yes,
But the mind just has to make some intricate design out of it over and over again.
absolutely.
And create this maze. Like, yes, we have the key to the maze.
Yeah.
And the walls are high, and the turns are somewhat treacherous.
Well, they can be.
But if you follow the right way, when in fact it's all, I don't know, maybe it comes into being for us to then find that it's not really what it appears to be. Over and over again, like enamored, taken, maybe even compulsed by more or avoidance of, to, oh, shit, I did it again. It's really not that important. Oh, shit, I'm not really that important.
Yes.
The I that's built up into this, I don't know, myth.
Yeah. The maturing process, call it that, of, the infant to the adult, or, the adult as a indulger in the mystery of the world, to the adult that begins to sip from the nirvanic field, right? Just does itself. It's a natural arc of renunciation.
So if we effort like crazy or don't effort at all, we're still going to come back around. But relaxing into that, really trusting and leaning into it, as you would say,
Yeah.
is easier said than done when you're really attached to some, hey, this has got to be some effort to have some reward.
Well, that's right. I mean, that's why, this salon is not, loaded with folks, because most folks, if they're, even marginally, call it spiritually interested, will go to cosmology and go
Yeah.
to kinship and go to practice
The
and go
juicy
to,
workshop.
yeah, because, that's real. Yeah, it's not easy to sip from their nirvanic field and, be relieved of the accoutrement of self. It's,
Accessory,
yeah, it's like,
adornment.
somehow you got to be kind of just ready to pop in on there and, chill the fuck out. Anyone looks at all the spiritual progress they've made as a result, excuse me, of all the spiritual shit that they've done, the honest answer is I have not made any progress at all, and I'm still absolutely empty-handed. Because you're still reliant on the myth of a field of abstraction as the arbiter of, your spiritual progress or success.
Right, so the first lie is that little point on the map that says you are here.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other point on the map says destination.
Coordinates. If you're the product of coordinates,
Ultimate.
if you're the product of
Or home.
sensuality, yeah, you're going to be confused. Which is cool.
Right, and not to even fuss over the fact that that will arise necessarily.
Yeah, leave it alone.
Not fuss that you are fussing.
Well, whatever you do, you're going to do.
Right.
You've never been able to, and I'm not singling you out, I've never been able to outsmart myself.
Mhm.
I've given myself a lot of advice over the course of the years I've lived, and I don't think I've ever followed it. Not once.
That's right.
Everything appears by, impulse. It has nothing to do with sticky notes on my fridge or the justifications that I've invested in as to why I should be or do a certain thing. I'm being played. I'm not alone. We can work on your neck after we close the computer down.
Oh, I'm still here. What time is it, by the way?
It's 2 a.m.
Oh, shit. This
has been the most fun. I haven't done this little, and I can't remember how long.
It's 9:30.
Wow.
If that clock's right.
Usually I always get the urge to go.
Yeah,
We meeting at Panera tomorrow?
Panera, yeah. Uh-huh.
What's the snow or something tomorrow?
More snow?
Yeah.
I hope not.
Rain or
Come
something?
on.
Jesus.
I think it's too
Saturday, I might go to the Easton Public Market and hang out. There's
Whoa.
gonna be that DJ guy there again or something.
Nice.
I don't know, but there's
Let's get some
pizza
vape
made.
wax.
There's pizza made from scratch. There's all different
Mhm.
it's a little indoor market with all a bunch of local people making really good food.
Mhm.
Sunday rain, snow, that's it.
Some foodie thing.
It's a foodie thing.
Yay.
I know Easton's out of the way for everyone.
I can see the reflex in my own quiet moments where what you call mind, I would call mind, is avoidant by nature and wants to run and play with abstraction and, story and extract feeling tones, whether pleasant or unpleasant emotional response or bracing response out of the right story that's being suggested. And it's like, you again? Really? So the response to it from time to time, not as a practice or a commitment of any kind, is just to recalibrate, right, to what actuality is, which is really, sensate, textural reality. And then the habit or reflex of mind to go off and running, right, into 1,000 diffuse storylines, capillary storylines. Just, yeah.
Yeah, now I just actually might smoke that half a J on my own.
And there you go. On your own, not with us
I
around.
found another one, Jack. It might have been one you gave me a year ago.
Well, if you've got some, then
Like a half.
I have a whole one that I haven't touched, and then there's a half of one that I just found.
Just give it to me. It's so dumb. Just when he gives it to you, give it to me.
yeah, just remember that. If someone gives you something, just give it to
And
Francine.
I'm waiting for the moment, and the moment never comes.
God.
The moment never comes. The moment's tonight.
I think it's tonight.
We'll set the moment for you tonight.
Me and my neck.
We'll work on your neck, give it some relief, and then we'll get.
Yeah, I'm feeling it now, man. When I was upside down, I wanted to walk on those tiles.
How are you guys different than a stoner cult?
Uh,
No, I got
I don't know.
nothing.
Boy.
Wish I had something to that.
It's funny because like maybe the less that my mind has to say, it's just becoming so apparently ridiculously repetitive.
Mm.
Like it's trippy. It's like, oh my God. It's spontaneous, it's not scripted, but it's repetitive still. It's
Yeah.
really funny. It's like I just don't have, I just randomly come up with the same kind.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Number 9.
That whole sobriety thing that Paul Hederman sells, I don't know about that.
Yeah, he does. He's true to the 12 steppers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a beautiful thing, of course. But,
Definitely 12% of the people that works on.
Well,
12%,
Yeah,
Abstinence.
that's not bad, huh? I mean, 12% success rate for AA?
Mushrooms is like one dose to quit smoking cigarettes, like 80%.
Mushrooms is
And
80%?
take psilocybin.
Wow.
Psilocybin is a
It was
much,
just like, it was
wow.
like one study and only for cigarettes, but it probably works for everything.
most likely,
Yeah,
yeah.
you might as well just go down to
Works better
Johns
than
Hopkins.
12%,
They'll
yeah.
give you some
Now, that's something you
psilocybin for
wanna
a study.
Do with a group, right?
Psilocybin?
Well, they did it like in a medicinal setting.
You
with
can
like
go
a
down to Johns
specific
Hopkins
therapist.
and sign up. They actually have one. They were looking for meditators, long-term meditators. You could do this. You can email the guy, go on
Really?
Johns Hopkins. Yeah. And he's
Shit.
looking,
I'm
you,
in.
you might have to like finagle your story a little, like, because he's looking for
Yes, I do
specific,
it every day.
because it's scientific. Yeah, every day for now. Just say you do, whatever, you're fine. And, and then you can go down there and but it's weird. Like they're gonna give you high dose psilocybin in like a room, and kind of you have like a babysitter, whatever. But they want to like study.
A high dose. Wow.
And what you gotta do is pretend to go crazy at the beginning, freak them out, start screaming. I'm just fucking with you guys.
They want to see
Shit,
if
am I
it like
sleeping?
enhances your meditation.
Indulge me your the permission to make a few closing comments apropos of some of the.
There's still people on there that whole time.
Well, some people
Oh,
are
no.
typing in the chat room and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Like,
guys.
man,
I
they're
didn't mean
going
to do
out.
this.
I thought it was
going
like
off.
you turned that off a while ago.
They're into the shrooms.
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't know.
The
Listen,
room with the
you know,
shrooms.
when you get high on the
Sorry.
internet, people are like, "Hey, those guys are getting high. Let's check that out." There's a seduction when it comes to being, clever, especially from a, so-called Advaita or non-duality bent, which is the sometimes clever refusal of, existence or reality, or it's all a dream, and, all that kind of stuff. And it's easy to get a little caught in the seduction of having, let's say, the final word. Just feel this. You don't have to become, clever or argumentative or discover a more refined conclusion than the next person. This speaks for itself. And as one, kind of chills out and hangs out with this nirvanic field, then, it's like everything is welcome. And there's no emphasis that needs to be placed on having, an accurate conclusion about anything. This is good, man. This is nice.
That's right. No destination, no prescribed destination.
I don't have to, I don't have to reference the self or the not self or the person or the not person. I don't have to reference experience as being one thing or not a thing or to whom it occurs. All of that becomes quite superficial. It's just fodder for the arguer in me, right? The aversive arguer in me.
And it's so much more, I can't say that word, equal, equalitarian. Egalitarian. I don't know why I can't say that word. Anyway, it's it's so much more open and playful in the other way and inclusive.
Yeah. I like, open and inclusive. I don't have to have
Not playful though. Just skip that part.
playful's good. Playful's nice.
Yeah.
Men more than women, at least in my reading of, chat rooms and people that have discourse, testosterone driven territory and argumentation and pissing matches and getting it right is a much more common narrative for, men involved in this stuff than for women involved in this stuff. And
But even that is funny. Like when I was telling the older guy about this group and whatever, he's like, "Is it mostly women?" And I was like, "Well, more so, but right now it's all men and me." So it's
Yeah.
like you can never really,
yeah.
it's random and it depends on.
Mixed bag.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I mean,
But yeah, men in our society are much more trained to
I think so. I
know something, support. It's dominant.
Search.
It's the dominant.
yes, it is. I mean, I
Declare.
find it kind of relaxing that, not to have to be declarative,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So that was that. Hey everyone, it's way past our bedtime. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope it was at least entertaining in some small way. And thanks for being so active on the chat room and entertaining each other. We'll see you at the next one.
What were they chatting about?
Is this comment driven? Is it driven by the
Anything good?
content?
You had me at toppling the patriarchy. Right. I'll have some crack on mine, please.
Listening. I was just muted.
No, yeah, I don't think they were paying attention. They're just having fun. Yeah, that's right. Just having fun.
Background noise of people talking.
Yeah. If there's no person, who's ordering the pizza? Thanks.
Well, there you go. That's somewhat related.